Mr. Mike Sautter. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good, and I appreciate you joining me. I want to talk high school baseball, high school basketball, looking ahead to next year, Nebraska basketball, and, of course, Nebraska football recruiting. Let's start Millard West. I guess you could call it an upset, so to speak. Upsets, gets a little payback, so to speak, on Lincoln East, Class A state championship game. They beat Lincoln East 4-3. What were your thoughts on this game? And I guess if you want to look at it like that, Millard West getting a little bit of payback on a great program out at Lincoln East.
Yeah, I would say it was an upset. All year long, Lincoln East was the number one team basically the entire year, and because they returned so much. And but Millard West obviously this is 5 state finals in a row, and 3 of the last 5 they've won. So Coach Fry has done a fantastic job building that program to the level it's at. Kids want to be a part of that program, so that helps too. Nick Van Tiger had a huge game, really big game, I guess, for them. 2 hits, and then scored a run and came in and closed out the game in the last, I think, inning in 2/3, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he's their closer for them, and just watching guys like Tyson Lewis play. He's a stud, committed to Arkansas, might not end up being at Arkansas because he'll maybe has a chance to get drafted pretty high out of high school. So, yeah, it was good. I would say it was a really good game, and all 3 games on Friday were pretty good as far as high school baseball state championships go. They're all super competitive, and one was a walk-off win, and so that's always fun.
Now, as a guy who played a ton of baseball growing up, if I wasn't playing 60, 70, 80 games of baseball in the summer, I didn't know what to do with my life when I wasn't going to school. So keep an eye out for Millard West. Their Legion team is what I'm getting at, and Lincoln East Legion team. Lincoln East, for people who don't know, they went all the way to the national championship last year. Okay, and I'm curious to see what they can do, as Mike said, with all those returning guys again on that Legion team this summer. Now let's go to Class B. All right, Norris beats Gretna East, and they win their first state baseball title since 2013. This was one of those great state championship games you were talking about. Okay, let the fine folks know who weren't there or didn't know what happened. Maybe catch them up to speed on what exactly happened.
Yeah, Gretna East in their first state final, and Norris has been there. Norris, the last 8 tries, hadn't won it as far as the state tournaments are concerned, and they've been super talented. And I would say this, it was really nice to see Cale Fountain go out with a state championship. If he's not the best high school baseball player, he's second probably behind Tyson Lewis at Millard West. Way good, and obviously has some draft potential there too. So but that game, it was really close, and then Norris just opened it up with a 5-run, I believe, 6 innings. So to kind of give them a lead. Gretna East clearly is going to be in the conversation, it looks like, going forward. They just have a bunch of young guys that you could say overachieved this year as far as expectations coming into the year, outside expectations coming into the year, and it was a really good game. Norris has a nice staff of just good pieces, and Coach Bartholomew gets one done, and feel good for him and happy for him to finally kind of get over that hump, if you will.
So you kind of mentioned looking ahead to next year. All right, Gretna East. I got to assume Norris and Lincoln East and a Class A, Class B, probably Millard West are going to be in this conversation again next year. Who are some other baseball teams, high school baseball teams, folks should watch out for going into next season?
Well, Millard South is always a good program. They were kind of young in key places, and they're definitely, had a chance maybe this year to be in that final or kind of win a game or two, or kind of get a little bit farther in the tournament. So Millard South, I think, would be the team to look out for. Lincoln East isn't going anywhere, even though they had a bunch of seniors, but they're not going anywhere anytime soon because Coach Lanick's done such a good job. But I think that one team is Millard South and A that will kind of be maybe more so in the conversation, even though they were a top 5 team all year. And one of the 4 teams at the beginning of the year, they were like, yeah, one of these four are going to win it. So, but they're, in that, for sure, going to be in that conversation.
All right, so I know we're a little bit removed from high school basketball, but you and I haven't had a chance to chat, so we're going to go backwards to go forwards a little bit. In other words, who should folks look ahead to next year? Class A, Class B, Class C, whatever you want to talk about as far as teams to keep an eye out for when it comes to potential teams being in that state championship game next year in high school for basketball.
Yeah, I would say in A, it's probably Millard North again. Bellevue West kind of lost a lot, but they do return. Their best player will be Robbie Garcia next year. He's going to be a senior, but they lost a bunch of seniors from this year. Now their JV program's been pretty good, and programs built up. Obviously, they'll still be in the conversation, but Millard North, I think, is probably the prohibitive favorite. And then Papio South is in that mix. Creighton Prep is another one in that mix. That'll be, the Class A kind of people. And then Scott next year again will be good. And B, Elkhorn, I think, has a chance to be pretty good. Elkhorn North has a chance to finally get to a state tournament. I think they'll be one of the top teams in B next year too.
All right, let's talk a little Nebraska basketball. All right, so for those who maybe haven't kept up to speed, as closely as maybe you have or some other folks have, who are some of the players that we had hoped would be back next year? Maybe they've entered the portal. Maybe they're going to sit the year out due to kind of letting their body heal from injury. Who are some of the folks for Fred Hoiberg and Nebraska basketball that won't be back next year?
Yeah, Rink Mass is the big one. Him taking a medical redshirt year to get his kind of knee right is a huge loss, if you will. I think they had pretty much every intention that he was going to come back. They just didn't know with the injury stuff and getting that fixed and getting it right for him for his future. And now that decision is made. It's a huge loss. And but they got some pieces in the portal that they'll try. Morgan, the kid from North Dakota State, is going to have to try and fill that gap or fill that void. I'm not sure how, because he's fine. He's a nice player, but he doesn't have the skill set that Rink does. And then they added some shooters with Gavin Griffiths and Connor Asijan. There's still one scholarship left. They could use it or they could hold it. Probably, it feels like at this point they're going to wait and either carry that over or maybe wait for a late, think like a Boogie Coleman type of situation. Not the same player, obviously, but type of situation where it's an August addition, if you will, from a grad transfer standpoint, or coaching change maybe happens or something like that they could fill that spot. But the roster, I think they got a little more athletic, maybe in certain spots. Losing CJ Wilcher to, he graduated, so he gave Nebraska 4 years, man. Like, I don't know what more he could have given them, but he did have that year of eligibility. Losing him to like A&M is very interesting because obviously Nebraska's season ended with A&M. Not sure how he fits, if you will, in what A&M likes to do, but good for him. Go get paid, I guess, and fill that role. I don't know what role he's going to have on that team, but him leaving, I think, is probably best for both parties moving forward. But I do think Nebraska got a little more athletic at that position. Just a matter of how athletic they can be, because that was the glaring thing from the Texas A&M game, where you just look and the athleticism wasn't quite there. But do you build your roster to win an NCAA tournament game, or do you build it to win the league? And it feels like Nebraska focused more on building it to help them be successful in the Big Ten.
So of all the new players coming in, and as you said, there's still a scholarship out there. We'll see what happens with that and who else they do or don't bring in. But of all the new players that are currently coming in, you mentioned we're getting more athletic. Who's maybe someone fans should keep their eye on the most? And what's the area you still think Nebraska needs to address the most potentially with that one scholarship left?
Yeah, I think if they're going to take somebody, I think you got to get just an athletic wing, not even like a shooter necessarily, because they already kind of feel like they got those guys. I think they need an athletic defensive kind of wing guy to pair with, hey, getting Juwan Gary back and to come back, and getting Bryce Williams, both them to come back, was huge for Nebraska. And both of them back certainly helps with the athleticism piece. Bryce Williams was probably the MVP. Him or Rink, I would say, were probably the MVPs of the team last year. Getting them to come back with the new faces. Gavin Griffiths is the guy that, as far as new faces are concerned, the transfer from Rutgers, got 2 years to play. I think he's, there's a lot to like there. He had an up and down year with Rutgers, or at Rutgers last year, but he did kind of give Nebraska some buckets when they played. So I think they looked at that. And coming out of high school, he's a top 100 recruit, and there's a lot of potential with him there. And I think in Hoiberg's system, he'll kind of flourish. I think he's a guy that could have a huge impact, or a pretty big impact on the team next year.
With that final scholarship, or what area on the team do you think they need to address the most? Is it potentially down low?
Yeah, I mean, you got to get another kind of 3-4 wing that's super athletic, just a defender type of guy. That's just my opinion. I think that's the position that they really need, a person like that, or a body like that. They got 2 point guards now. Aaron Eulis is back and going to play this year. Raleigh Worcester he's as old as I am, it feels like, and but he'll be a really nice piece. He works really hard. He's a leader. He's old, like I mentioned. And that's, they have that point guard position kind of settled if Raleigh is healthy. But now you actually have 2 true kind of point guards that they didn't really have last year. And they tried to force the issue with Jamarcus Lawrence, and that just wasn't a natural position for him.
All right, man. Little Nebraska football, the commits, there's 4 of them out of the 8 so far from the great state of Nebraska. So I'm going to start off with these 2 individuals. All right, drop that knowledge, help us learn a little bit more about them. Tyson Terry, a defensive lineman, 6'2", listed at 279 out of Omaha North. And Jackson Carpenter, listed as an athlete, 6'2", 185 out of Lincoln Southwest. What can the fine folks at home learn about those 2 specifically?
Yeah, Tyson obviously is a very good athlete, a kind of dancing bear type of guy. Clearly, went undefeated as a high school wrestler at a heavyweight, and that just doesn't happen. And he might be undefeated this next year too. Defensive line is where he is going to start out. But for me, this is just my opinion, I think him being an interior offensive lineman is his future. He doesn't want to do that, but I think he kind of I honestly compare like a Cam Jurgens type situation there, where it's like, okay, we're going to move you over here. We're going to move you over here, and you're going to have a chance to make some money, playing center or guard at the next level. So that's my opinion. Tyson Terry is a leader, hard worker, plays with a little bit of an edge and a chip on his shoulder. Just an all-around great dude that fans, I think, can really get behind and enjoy. And Jackson Carpenter's one of those guys that's super athletic. Him and Vermas are 2 just athletic type of guys that you can see helping on special teams. And Vermas is a corner, so he could transition into that. Lengthwise, maybe an issue, but maybe those 2 type of guys. It does feel like Nebraska really likes to recruit that jack linebacker spot with a bunch of different players. And that position's a little, some versatility there with athletic guys. So I think that Carpenter maybe fits into that, or kind of like a slot receiver type that has a little more speed than, let's say, like an Alex Bullock thing. So that's where I see kind of those guys fitting in. It'd be really important for Nebraska as far as football recruit. I mean, Christian Jones or CJ Jones from Westside is a huge piece if they can get him to commit, which last I talked to him, that won't be anytime really soon. I think he wants to do it in the middle of his season, high school season. I don't think it's coming this summer. But that one would be big. And Pierce Newberry is another guy that I love from Millard North that Nebraska has offered. And he's an outside linebacker, but he's played single high safety and played some tight end type stuff, and looks like he'll do that again this year. But he'll move down to be in his more kind of natural position of an outside linebacker. Those are two in-state guys that I think would be pretty big gets if Nebraska was able to get that done.
I would love to see, and they're two different weight classes, but if it were possible to put them in the same weight class, I'd love to see Tyson Terry and Nash Hutmaker have a wrestling match. All right, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. You mentioned Caden Vermont real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, just say those two wrestling against you. That would be pretty fun. I don't know. Be a lot of weight moving around. I know that.
It definitely would. It definitely would. Nash has a bit of an advantage at this point, but he's also got a few years on him as far as the weight, so to speak. You mentioned Caden Vermont a little bit. Last guy to chat about, and then I'll let you get out of here. Appreciate your time. Connor Booth out of Bishop Newman from Wahoo, listed I believe 6'1", 212, running back. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's a great athlete, multi-sport guy. Basketball, baseball, football. Obviously, football. He plays running back, plays linebacker, because in Class C1, C2, whatever, that's what you have to do. Mm-hmm. But he was clearly one of their best athletes as a sophomore at Newman, and that just has continued. He runs hard. Not sure he's going to, play running back at the next level. I feel like he's probably more of a middle linebacker type of guy, but great athlete. He's a great athlete, and another one of those like culture guys that just will go do his work, and you won't have to worry about him off the field or any issues or going to class. None of that. Like, there's zero character issues there with Connor Booth.
Matt Rule loves to recruit athletes, from Carpenter to who we were just talking about to Vermont, like just great athlete guys. And as you mentioned, culture guys as well. I want to thank you for joining me. Appreciate it, Mike.